This is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from DestinationLyra. And DestinationLyra has this question. It's a follow-up to our earlier vlog on the subject of birthmarks. And Lyra remarks that this was a great video for explaining a particular person's birthmark, but could I speak to the wider issue of how anyone might interpret a birthmark? And my answer to this is that the art of reading the body is called physiognomy. And in my second degree book, I devote the second chapter to various manifestations of this art. The most famous is palmistry, which deals specifically with the hand. And there are also other forms of physiognomy that deal with only specific parts of the body, such as metaposcopy, which deals with the forehead and the lines on it. But every part of the body can be read, and there are a variety of schools of thought as to how this is done. And we talk about that in great length in chapter 2.2. Having said that, generally speaking, what you want to do is, in considering a birthmark or a scar or any other thing which is on your body, you want to consider two parts of it. The first is the shape, and the second is the location. Also, color may be important as well. I would say the darker the color, the stronger the indication of what it means. So, for example, shoulders represent issues of responsibility, and the upper back tends to be emotional responsibility, the lower back more financial responsibility. But if you have marks in this area, I would say that the prominence, the shape, the darkness of them are all things that you would want to take into consideration in looking at what they might mean to you and whether they are positive or negative. Generally speaking, the right side of the body is a physical manifestation, the left side is emotional or psychic. So if you had a mark on the right shoulder, it would tend to have to do with physical responsibilities in the everyday world. If it were on the left shoulder, it might be emotional responsibility, it might be spiritual responsibility. If you had a mark on the foot, the feet tend to have to do with the life path. And if you had a particular mark on one foot or the other, it might indicate whether your life will tend to be more physical or more spiritual. And there are various nuances to this as well. Obviously, I can't go through all the meanings in the space of a vlog, but as I say, my second degree book and also many other books out there that you can look for or you can look online can tell you a lot more about this. So, physiognomy is how you interpret things like birthmarks. And on rare occasions, they have specific shapes, such as the pentagram birthmark that was discussed the other day, but generally they don't tend to be quite that blunt. However, often they can have an interesting shape that may carry part of the meaning, the color may carry part of the meaning, and of course the location. However, it's very important to bear in mind, one, there are multiple schools of thought on the subject of physiognomy, and two, just because a person has a mark does not necessarily mean that this is somehow an immutable trait. And there's a very famous story about the philosopher Socrates, who consulted a physiognomist by the name of Zopyrus. And Zopyrus came to do his reading for Socrates and was very embarrassed to have to say that, based on physiognomy, he felt that Socrates was probably a loudmouthed lout who had no appreciation of finer things and no particularly deep understanding. To which Socrates replied, well, yes, that's exactly what I was like before I started studying philosophy, and now I'm very different. So there are things it can tell you, and some of them can be very informational, and in this respect is very much like astrology, for example. But it's also important to remember that people have free will and can make changes, and this can affect what you're reading. Not only that, but also bear in mind that marks do change. And those changes can tell you just as much as the original mark would have. And things such as scars also constitute changes in a person's physiognomy and can be read accordingly and can represent developments which are occurring or soon to occur in terms of the person's life. So that would be my answer for how to interpret birthmarks in general. And as I say, you can find the lists of meanings and so forth all over the place, or you can go to my book, which is available through coursor.co. and many other places. So I hope that answers your question and gives you something to think about, and until next time, may you blessed be. Please join me for our Correllian Peace Prayer. I pray for peace. I pray for love. I pray for stability. I pray for the nation where I live. I pray for the world. Reverend Don, super omnibus of incantations and invocations for all occasions. Mary Ann Kay and I created this massive compendium of magic and artwork for you to use in any way that you would like. There are literally hundreds of spells and hundreds of illustrations, which can be mixed and matched and used in many different ways. Check it out now at witchghoulstore.com.